Okay. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Replimat, chatcast in which two nerds normally go through DS9 in order. Although, as of 2024, and that's where we are now, we now go concurrently through DS9 in order and every existing episode of Doctor Who in order. We like to challenge ourselves. This week we're back on Doctor Who. We're on the last episode of the Daleks, which is episode 7, The Rescue, and on to the two-parter, Edge of Destruction and The Brink of Disaster. Edge of Destruction. The Dalek Rescue was first transmitted on the 1st of February 1964. So again, nearly 60 years ago, which is crazy, not that far off.
It is.
And the nerds, of course, are me, Andy, who in this case is a long-time Doctor Who fan. Been following the show on and off since I was a kid, certainly since 1987. And over there we have...
me, Tim. And I am also considerably steeped in nerdiness regarding Doctor Who. And have been a regular viewer,
Yes.
as far as I can tell, since about 1976, when I was too small to know.
Yeah, I started late 70s too. Yeah, I started late 70s originally, but I drifted as you do when you're a teenager. Not in the 70s and the 80s. I wasn't a teenager in the 70s, obviously.
I've never drifted.
I'm not that old, thankfully. So yes, as we're in Doctor Who land, we'll be doing our unique take on a commentary, which would basically be us talking a load of nonsense over the episode. Sharing our own personal stories about the episode, perhaps, our recollections, and occasionally, maybe, if you're lucky, some actual legit facts about the episode we're watching. But we'll see. So this time, we shall count in, because last time I forgot to count in our first episode. So, viewers, on 3, we shall begin. 1, 2, 3. And dear viewers, those of you watching us, not listening, you'll see behind me the actual episode being played. I will occasionally put my head over it just for copyright. But at least that way you can see where we are and actually what we're talking about, since you're not able to hear it.
Yeah, just don't forget to make sure you put your head in the way at really important moments.
Oh yeah, I'll be like, oh, it's one way. Yeah, I'll be like,
poor Ian's been left
on this one, that's right.
clinging on to polystyrene precipice.
Bloody cave.
Well, it's more of a cave system than a cave. I know you. I know you kind of.
Well,
it had lost its. It had lost its thrill for you last time, as I recall. The cave system.
Good God, I was so not even focused on it, was I? Doctor Who does that, doesn't it? Sometimes it captivates you. Other times, over familiarity. Sometimes you're like, and occasionally, I mean, any show that's run for as long as Doctor Who has run, there's going to be bits where it's just going to be boring, And honestly, 7 parts, not ideal.
Well, no, I mean,
that said, of course, as we will discover later in the run,
I've been enjoying it, but yes, it's. I think any longer story tends to have its kind of its ebbs and flows. Oh no, that's not going to do him any good, is it? Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of ebb and flow, nope, that's not good.
They sanitized that in the film, didn't they? Because
I do believe they did. Yes.
And Todus survived. He managed to cling to the wall. So,
tell you what, dear viewer, I know it's plural because I keep checking. There are more than one, Tim. When we get to Doctor Who and the Daleks widescreen film, which is around season 3-ish, I believe.
Yeah.
In the background there, the viewers will get the 4K edition.
Oh, cool.
We'll have to work out that. Yeah, we'll have to work that out because obviously it's not on iPlayer.
No, it's going to have to be a Blu-ray job, isn't it?
I think it's going to be a case of me sitting like this, watching it like this. That's what's going to have to happen.
Well, they're sharing. The Daleks
are watching on TV, isn't it?
Passing the map or or a letter or something between themselves, aren't they, at the moment? So Hartnell is there's an awful lot of conviction to Hartnell in these scenes with the Daleks in their control room. It's
agree.
He doesn't have to say an awful lot. It's just it's there, kind of in his
soul,
just in his bearing, in his tone and stuff. It is very, very good.
Oh, speaking of tone and bearing and stuff, totally not Doctor Who, since we did say we're bound to waver into other stuff occasionally. You know, I was talking a few weeks back about I was watching Keeping Up with Appearances.
Oh, right, yeah.
Today, finally. And I know, and I do agree that the character is hideous, which is the whole point of Hyacinth. But my God, Patricia Rutledge's physicality in the role is phenomenally good. And I'm trying to also talking about repeating stuff and how things get tired and boring, and the reason why she stopped doing it because she thought the writer was repeating himself and stuff.
Yes,
I'm not seeing it. I mean, it's repeating it itself that a sitcom does, because obviously it's all about playing on the gags. But I don't know. I don't think it ever got repetitive in the sense of repeating stories.
Possibly, she might be slightly misquoted there. I have a feeling that she wanted to stop before it got repetitive. It may be in that she'd seen...
That would make sense, yes.
She'd seen script ideas for future episodes and said, hang on, no, this is too similar to what we've done before.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think she wanted to stop before it got repetitive. Now. Yeah.
I think it's a good call because the best shows, do know when to say, right, let's go out on a high synth and, not dribble away.
Yeah,
unlike this episode, not this episode, the story, it just drags. See, it's all connected.
It does, but it's moving forward, and and after all that they've been through, you've got that wonderful sense of achievement that actually they are where they need to be. After all,
well, I don't disagree. I think the story works.
Yeah, when you watch it, when you watch it, as we are either on DVD or on iPlayer or whatever, and you're potentially watching one episode after another, it's easy to forget how they were just made, week by week, and so you'd finish the episode, or they'd finish the episode, and then everyone get cleaned up. Studio gets cleared, they leave, come back the next week, and they've got to be they've got to pick up. Like emotionally, physically, visually, from where they where they were previously. But just seeing Ian and Barbara and the Thals in the cave system, they're looking utterly wretched. Yeah. I think that's quality on all counts, because you'd believe that was just picked up exactly, filmed continuously from where they were previously in episode 6.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
I love the way the Daleks they're not convinced that the Doctor's capable of creating or piloting such a machine. So if there's going to be one thing that winds him up even more, it's going to be the baddie turning around going, you couldn't come up with a machine like that.
You, an old man, you. Travel in the fourth dimension is impossible. Yes, I know. I told these people only 12 weeks ago. I told them, or they told me, and I proved them wrong. Because, I've now traveled into part of your planet and its present. So, yeah. Yes, I'm still going by the theory that the Prime Maker was setting Scarrow's past.
Yes.
That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it because there's nothing on TV that really says otherwise.
As I said to Dolores Montenegro in Calling All Quakers, have it your way, baby.
Oh yes, they always do.
That's a Simpsons quote, sorry.
Uh, after my time.
After your time.
It's one of those shows, again,
All right, Gramps.
longevity and shows are overrun, One of those shows, I think, that went
Yes.
on and still goes on way too
It still
long.
goes on today. Yeah, randomly.
Like Family Guy as well. It's just like, okay, it was funny, but now it's just like, But we're talking about, 7
Other
episodes
stuff.
for me, I feel just a bit too much. Yeah, just overstaying its welcome. But
Yeah.
there's certainly stories later in Doctor Who's run that are longer that actually, and hopefully, continue to maintain my interest throughout.
Yes, I reckon
a certain
so.
parter comes to mind that always keeps my interest in a way
There's an
that this
part just before that as well that
yes,
always keeps my
one
always
we
keeps
talked
my
about
interest.
not that long ago.
Indeed.
But again, as you said, you've actually found this quite interesting still. So
Well, I have, and I like this. I'm getting a real sense with this episode of kind of the pieces all moving in the right direction. Everything's kind of coming together. You don't necessarily know how it's all going to end. Obviously, the viewers, the original viewers, wouldn't have either because they didn't necessarily know where the show was going. But you've got Ian and Barbara and the
as an
Thals
original
creeping
viewer,
in.
not
You've got
not myself.
just.
Well, I think the advantage of back then, way before both our times, it's at the stage, and will be for some time yet, where when it's advertised on Radio Times and that, because that's all it was around then, no TV times or anything, it would just be the next episode title. So you never knew, I guess, unless the Radio Times give away when a story is actually coming to an end. You could be thinking it's building up, but no, it's continuing on. I mean, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, the only way of telling would be to watch it.
It's a shame we don't get that.
Until we get to the Savages.
Nice, actually. It's a shame they don't do it.
Season 3. And the Savages is the first one with
or not get it, because it doesn't exist.
1 of 4.
Yeah. I am pondering. Let's put this out there now. There's an idea in my head.
Yeah.
Do we? Because it all exists in some format. Just do a commentary on the audios of the ones that are missing, maybe.
No. No, I can. I don't think that. I don't think that would be particularly. Yeah, I don't know that. I don't. And we could perhaps do a quick discussion of them before or after.
Well, I suppose we could just listen to it another time in those 2 weeks between whatever, and then have a little chat about them before we get on to the next existence episode.
I reckon so. Yeah, I don't think that would be particularly exciting otherwise. But of course, Alidon's just appeared. It's nice that you've got there's other stuff going on in the background that the audience don't know about, and the Daleks and others obviously don't know about, and it's nice to be able to surprise the audience like that. Again, it's all building up, isn't it? Just kind of everyone sort of moving in towards the climax, whatever that's going to be. Well, at the moment, it could be Barbara being sliced in half. Poor thing.
I mean,
we still don't know with those trousers. We still don't know
if
that's a hole in the trouser or if it's a patch sewn on.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Sometimes it looks like it is a hole. Other times it looks like there's some sort of material. But it could just be they got flabby skin. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know how taut their legs are. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell. I'm just looking now.
I will give this story. I can see why the Daleks, caught the imagination, obviously. Yeah. And I'm also, I think you mentioned this last time, or the time before last possibly, there is the received wisdom that Daleks are boring on their own and not conversationalists and all this kind of nonsense. But I don't think that's true. I think if they're written well, they can be fascinating to just have Daleks discussing or whatever. And this story has shown that many times over. They actually work perfectly well.
Definitely, because if they're given proper dialogue to speak, then it's interesting. If you write them as just a one-note villain that's always ranting or always talking about killing, then of course they're going to be dull, because anyone is if that's all they've got to talk about. But
I think New Who has
quite conversational in this.
I mean, look at Dalek from 2005. Sherman understood as a writer, you make this interesting, and obviously, with credit to Nick Briggs, his vocal performance had such emotion to it that you're like, no, you suddenly remembered for the first time in a long time on TV anyway that the Daleks, they actually are characters potentially, and they're beings. They're not just these machines. They're beings inside that of some sort of emotion. Throw a rock at it.
And
throw a rock at it.
In some ways, they work better when there are less of them. So you can kind of compare Dalek, for example, to was it Parting of the Ways? Bad Wolf, Parting of the Ways at the end of that first of that Eccleston series.
Yeah.
You've got the sheer power of that Dalek episode is wonderful, and just watching it as it plots and plans to kill everyone else, and but you're faced with a mass arm,
Dalek,
and it's just diluted. So
and in Dalek, kind of like in this story, to be honest, is the threat is the fact that there's may not be many of them or just one in Dalek, but the power and the unstoppable power they actually have. I mean, in Dalek in particular, he's got all those soldiers aimed at them, and you just this one Dalek, you're like, oh, you are also toast.
Yeah.
Because this one Dalek, you can see the threat it poses, which is kind of the same here. You feel their threat. Well, you did until the end of this episode, and you're like, oh God, you feel their actual crapness as well. They're really showing how actually crap they are as well a bit.
One of the few negatives I have about this is the end of that battle it's never massively clear what caused them to lose their power. So
isn't it they cut off the electricity?
Possibly a shot, a particular. Maybe there should have been a more pointed camera shot of them, firing at something like in the film when Roy Castle.
Because that's when they basically fired at their own electricity supply.
Yeah. So.
Should note, dear viewers, that it may appear that I'm talking over Tim. It's just that we're having these Saturday technical difficulties, but we often have, where Tim, from my end, appears to be cutting out, but from his end, he's not. And so occasionally it looks like I'm talking over him, but I'm just only hearing bits of his conversation. I know. I'm like, I'm sure he's talking. I can hear a bit of what's this. So I have to sort of guess half of what he said. But we're all hands at this now.
We are getting to be well practiced.
One day we'll have an internet connection that's perfect. Oh, yeah. I mean, look at them. Wrinkled hat. Not really. They're quite smooth, to be fair. It's the final end of the Daleks for the final time until the next time. And the next time.
I wonder if those were special... If they were special props that were made for the Daleks to be tipped up, or whether they were just the Daleks, because you never get to see the base of them properly, so you can't see if there's if there's a hole for the operators to put their legs feet through.
I'm sure we just saw the one that was tipped over. You saw the bottom was just smooth surface, which presumably could easily have just been added. It could have just been added for that one shot.
Yeah, because they do in Dalek Invasion of Earth, I think, when they carry one through.
You can see the hollow
crowd
open.
Carries one through. Yeah.
I was a pioneer among my own
quite
people.
Charming. He's quite charming.
He has those moments
here when he's talking about rebuilding a whole new world and stuff as well. It's
and he was a pioneer among his own people once. I wonder if that was a residual timeless child memory, or if that was in this news cycle that he was given. It still fits with what we later learn, that he was involved with the originals.
It all fits.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
Somehow. The only thing it doesn't fit is the idea that already, according to Remembrance much later, he already knows what the Daleks are, because that's why he was on Earth anyway. To hide, setting up a big plot and trap. It's like, that doesn't fit. Sorry, Ben Aronovich. Love your work. Absolutely adore Remembrance, but that was a bit of a retroactive continuity that does not make any sense.
Oh, well.
It's true.
Why let
that's 25 years
get in the way of a damn fine story?
I agree. I mean, I love Remembrance, and again, we'll talk about that eventually. It was the first time for me the Daleks felt like an actual threat for a long time.
Yeah.
Even if Ace did go, wimps, it's like, fair. Why can't she say that? She didn't say it to their face, did she? No. Oh, here we go, that little bit of romance.
Ganatus is trying to persuade Barbara to stay.
Baby, stay.
That like, kind of suggested love interest from a few episodes ago.
And Susan, Susan completely missing
the first time, the first time, and not the last time by a long chalk, that this kind of scene will be played out at the end of Doctor Who story.
Sometimes it will actually have that desired effect, and the companion will say, "You know what? I'm gonna stay." Yes, but. But all you did was touch hands once. Yeah, that's enough. Hello, Leela.
It's another one of those. It's another one of those aspects when people look at Planet of the Daleks and say, "Oh, it's Terry Nation's greatest hits," or "It's full of ideas that he's used before." I mean, personally, I don't have a problem with that. But you even get the Thal trying to persuade Joe to stay at the end of that, like you do here.
See, it's his greatest hit, but it was 10 years later, 10 years after this, certainly, almost 10 years after this anyway, and at that point, really, really repeated, so it was still fresh to the majority of the new audience who would have been babies when this one was shown, or, 10 years ago, it's a long time. Ooh, I do like a good cliffhanger at the end of the story.
Oh, yes. What could possibly have happened?
Well, I guess we'll find out in The Edge of Destruction.
The Edge of Destruction. Right.
So, Tim, what did you think of that last episode then?
I felt it was a suitably dramatic conclusion to 7 episodes. I felt that it built the kind of the tension and the excitement throughout the episode. I think potentially there was a missed opportunity with the final battle, just to kind of give it that kind of punch, that climactic punch that it needed. I think it just kind of fizzled out a little bit towards the end. But I think, I think overall it was a good solid story, and a good solid final episode. And we still don't know what's going to happen to Ian and Barbara, do we? Because they're still, they've now gone on from their second adventure and something's happened to the TARDIS.
Yes, they're all a bit.
So, yeah,
like
it all went a bit glowy, bangy, and stagger-abouty. So,
yes, wonderful verbs. Yeah, verbs.
yes, we'll take
Doing
that.
words. Verbs. Doing words. But
Doing
yeah,
words.
for me, I think it picks up towards the end. I do mean, obviously, as a story, I think it does stagnate a wee bit, gets repetitive a bit. But that's the problem I tend to have with Terror Nation scripts, is longer ones in particular. It does sort of drag. But again, you got to be aware that they were ultimately just, we need to fill 25 minutes, and that does the job. But it's a solid story. I like the Daleks are presented very well. All the cast are fantastic as ever. We get more progression of them as characters, and as you said when we first went into this episode, we get more of the mythos again. There's still world building this new show.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, of course, that when these scripts were written, they only planned for 13 episodes anyway. So the fact that they're still quite happily building, even though they don't know for sure they're going to go past the 13, at least on a scripting stage, shows a bit of confidence, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
It's all good. Speaking of 13, we're now on the last two parts of this 13 episode arc, which I think you mentioned at the beginning of our Who Watch, that in some ways these, I suppose, 3 stories, 13 episodes certainly, you kind of need to approach them as one big arc, because that's kind of the intent.
Yeah, it's one continuous narrative,
end of this
isn't it?
arc before they move on to new things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only, I mean, although there is obviously a cliffhanger straight into the next episode, next story, or will be, this, as you say, this is the end of this initial narrative of the Doctor basically kidnapping them, them being forced to be with him and not particularly trusting him, and getting to the point, as we're going to see, where they all start to come together and go, actually, let's all be on the same page going forward. But
yes,
we shall definitely be seeing that shortly. Okay, so, dear viewers, and indeed Tim, we shall begin on 3 for the Edge of Destruction.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So what could possibly top the Daleks? We just had something that's taken the nation by storm, pretty much.
The Terry Nation by storm.
The Terry Nation, yes. School children all over the country fell in love with the Daleks, and that secured Doctor Who's future.
They fell in love to the point of, we need a sequel. Well, I say sequel, a second story with them in at least. But wasn't it really the Dalek invasion of Earth that really kicked off Dalek Mania?
I think it probably was. Unless
I'm mistaken. Yeah, they needed that second outing to really,
Yeah.
They're now at home, they're on your own streets. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is all a bit... It's all a bit strange.
There's only one thing about this story I don't like.
Only one? Go on then.
There's only one thing about the story I don't particularly like, and that is literally that Susan's back into, I won't say school uniform, I don't know if it actually is, but the dress that she was wearing in the beginning of An Unearthed Child. And it just seems like, well, I suppose that's deliberate to throw Ian and Barbara off visually, but it's odd that she would just happen to wear that when they've lost their memory. Convenient, I think.
Isn't there a moment when they change, though? When they get changed?
Oh, yeah. That's coming up shortly, yeah. Oh, she's already changed. She changed in between episodes.
Yes.
Well, she changed, I guess, when Bob was saying goodbye. I will say, in Caroline Ford's defense, I will never say she's the best actress back in the day. I mean, she's much better these days, but I suppose you get better as you get older. It makes sense. But she has given it all in being weird and crazy and odd and just unearthly in this two-parter in particular. She's really going for it. Oh, I'm really weird.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
and of
she
course,
does. She nails it. She really does nail it in this story.
Oh, what was that for? And she often reacts to stuff that doesn't actually seem to happen. Like this, she stood up, she went, "Oh!" But why?
But that adds to the weirdness. Exactly. I think one of the charms of this is that the viewer's never quite sure what's going on.
Sure.
Again, it's one of those. I think it's probably one of those stories that the impact is lessened the more you watch it, because although the more you watch it, you can the more you can pick up on some of the intricacies.
Anything that's a mystery, and if you've already seen it,
but you got.
I mean, obviously, anything if it's like any mystery story you've watched or seen before.
There's some lovely subtleties and intricacies.
But the joy is you get to
the performances. And that's
what I was going to say. What's great about it is on repeated viewing. Once you know what the mystery is, like any mystery type thing, if you get to watch it a second time or read it a second time, whatever, you can listen, look out for different things that you wouldn't have been looking for at first because you're too busy trying to work out what the hell's going on. Now you can pay attention to other stuff that's going on, like, it's quite clever what they're doing, actually.
Yeah.
Because you didn't spot it. This is quite cool. I like this idea.
But I think
this bandage thing that
the bandage, with the healing
white as he
stuff
gets
in
better.
it. Yeah. I think
that's
one of
clever.
the. I think this is a story that doesn't reward multiple viewings. If you see what I mean, I think
it doesn't.
It doesn't. I don't think it does. No, I think potentially a couple of times, and then that's that's really about it. Because I think
it'd be one of those episodes
what tends to happen is you start to question.
If you're going to repeat watch it, you need a gap.
Yeah, because it's too easy to question the logic of it, and although for the first time you're watching it, it's got that. I love the food machine. It does sort of take you along with this. I don't know what's going on, but this is kind of vaguely kind of weird and interesting. And then just I think once you've lost that and you've kind of concentrated on the performances, I don't think there's anything else there at all, because it is just it's a 2-episode filler, basically. It's Doctor Who's first filler.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I completely know. I don't know. I'm not sure if I entirely agree. I can see what you're saying.
That's good.
But I think there's enough
fascinating
things to watch visually. I think it's one of these episodes, like you say about repeated viewing. I would say it bears repeated viewing only if it's not repeated viewing often.
Yeah,
like if you've seen it recently, it's not something to rewatch in succession. You need a bit of space between it to really enjoy it again.
Yeah,
I think.
I did watch it.
The logic of the plot
last year.
Sorry, you cut.
I did watch it last year.
I just got last year. Okay.
I watched it last year, but I hadn't watched it before that for a number of years, possibly about 10 years. And I'm sure in total I've probably only ever seen it about half a dozen times. So,
I think it'd be interesting, although impossible now, to work out how many times we've seen particular stories. But obviously, it's too late to count now. Way too late to count now. But in terms of classic, I think, I think for myself, I could tell you like eras that I probably would have seen more of than others. Like I guarantee you, season 25 and 26, I've probably seen more than almost anything else of Doctor Who because I had taped those back in '89 and '88 when they was on. So I would have watched them so many times. I mean,
Yes.
God, when we get to that era, I could literally quote dialogue throughout the entire stories.
Yeah.
Remember, we had this kind of discussion, didn't we, with Fenwick, when we done Fenwick a while back. It's one of those stories I'm so familiar with. I could literally tell you every bit of dialogue instead of don't need to play, don't need to watch it. Here we go. Let's go. Ready? Okay, right. So opening with, you know, but you know you've watched something too much when you could do that.
Yes.
Oh, not too much, but a lot. A lot. On the back of the neck. Who would have done that? These are quite clever. I like the. I don't know if they're economically designed or ergonomically designed either. Actually, I would see that's probably that comfortable.
I would hate to have to sleep on that. That would be horrible to sleep on.
It's probably very good for your. Probably very good for your posture, mate.
I could not get comfortable trying to sleep on that. I guarantee.
See, most people when they sleep, well, I assume most people, you don't just, sleep in one position. You move around a lot. You're on your side, you go on your front. Just like that.
Scrunch up, stretch out.
How would you possibly lay on your side on that thing?
Yeah, just ain't gonna happen.
It's futuristic. Not realistic, futuristic. Or practical. I can't believe this reminds me of this particular scene. They cut out the entirety of the food machine stuff in the coloured version of Daleks, which is just beyond stupid.
Doesn't have much to the plot, does it? Oh, this is the first time that the show got complaints, apparently.
Oh, in a little bit of trouble, yes. You won't let this happen now, would you?
You can kind of understand why, because that's a nasty pair of scissors that she's got there.
It's a weird looking pair as well. They don't look very practical. I mean, this is just asking for danger, isn't it? I mean, Jesus. Those are... What sort of scissors are they? Sort you cut material with, I guess?
I think possibly are, yeah. I'm sure... I think my grandmother had a pair of scissors like that. They're not kitchen scissors. A
normal looking couch. The normal looking couch in the TARDIS. I like it when there's just normal furniture in the TARDIS, not all futuristically and odd and weird. It's like, no, just normal, because the anachronisticness of it is what's kind of the visual catch, isn't it? Which they've obviously come back to in the new shooty stuff with this nice retro jukebox in it. It's like, yeah, I like that. So I remember, right? I've got it somewhere. In my Doctor Who Legacy fixed series I did, when my new fifth Doctor, which was played by Anthony Stewart Head, in my head, when his TARDIS, all the alternating walls in the TARDIS room was full of books and bookcases. Because I'm like, it makes sense because he's a studious guy. And then they did that in the Peter Capaldi stuff, and I was like, yes, this is why I knew it would look awesome, because it did look awesome. The interior of the conference room being half library, it's like, yeah, absolutely. Why not have this knowledge at your hand? Read about it, step outside, go and experience it. Made sense to me. Ooh, and intelligence.
Yeah.
Not that intelligence, Andy.
They're doing very well at frightening each other at the moment, frightening themselves with theories about what might have happened.
Mm-hmm. Hartnell does fluff a fair amount of lines in this story, as I recall. Especially when he has that great, big, powerful speech that he completely cocks up, but he doesn't half go for it anyway.
I mean, obviously, there was a hell of a lot of pressure on on them having gone from a cast of what did they have? A cast of about 10 in the last episode to just it being
Just
the four of them for these 2 weeks. That's a lot.
Well, yeah, literally all the dialogue is just them four. Yeah, a lot to learn.
There's a lot resting on this.
Jeffrey Man in his, isn't he like late 40s, early 50s at this point?
Well, Hartnell.
Not that old, really.
He's 55, 56.
Okay, so not that old,
I think
really.
he's 55 when he got the role.
Not nowadays. I mean, no, back in the 60s.
Because Peter Capaldi was about 55 when he got the role as well, and he didn't quite seem like such ancient.
It's weird, isn't it? How ages, I mean, obviously, it's how lifestyles have changed so much, but
just the way people dressed and stuff as well. You see old family photos and say, "Oh, that's your aunt so and so or whatever." When back in the 60s, when they were in their like mid to late 40s or something, and they looked like they're in their late 60s because they're just the way they dress, the way they have their hair and stuff. It gets to a certain point, it's like, no, you have to start. At the time, it's like, no, from this point onwards, you are an old person.
Start being an adult now.
Exactly. Start dressing like an old lady. Start looking like an old man.
Look, you've left school now. Now it's time to dress like you're old. Now.
Which is essentially what used to happen before the teenage age group, as it were, was invented in the 50s or whatever. So, she's back with the scissors again. I can't help thinking about the. Remember in the first story in An Unearthly Child and so forth. There were plenty of scenes where it was just the four of them, and particularly when they were in like the Cave of Skulls and stuff.
So good.
And just Boris Hussein's direction. Just it kind of gave everything like a mystery and an energy, and even though a lot of those things were very long and very, very wordy, they didn't always seem.
They weren't static.
Yeah, exactly. I think my issue with a lot of this is it is static. It's like
wouldn't you maybe argue that
you can be staging without it being static? And I wonder if there should be more camera movement, or perhaps more playing with the camera to tease the audience a little bit, because you got the actors or the characters saying, there could be something on board the ship. It wouldn't, it wouldn't harm the narrative.
I'm just trying to think what they could do with the cameras.
Cameras that were potentially not quite so standard. I know they're very heavy, and they had about half a dozen people to.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There were composite things back then.
They were, but
so they can't do like low, weird angles or anything. But they could certainly do stuff like frame it like this shot here, where the camera's a bit off, so they're literally at the edge of the frame when they should be central, just to suggest.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
And you could.
It'd be difficult because obviously their cameras, you can only do so much.
You could look through into one set from because all the sets are interlinked. So have the doors open, or a door partly open, and the camera peering through as if potentially you are someone else in the ship watching them. Just things like that. It's the what is now known as the console room is quite moodily lit in places. There you've got shadows and so forth. That could be replicated more.
Interesting factoid for you. I don't know if you know, but on the scripts, it was actually called the control room.
Control room, yeah.
It certainly was by the late 80s anyway. Because in 88, I guess it would have been, my mother, because, she bumped into Andrew Cartmel in Shepherd's Bush, because this is where we used to live. And she told him all about me and how I want to write for Doctor Who and da-da-da. and she actually got him to send me a pack to submit a script to them with a sample script and everything, which was very nice of them.
Cool.
Which I did promptly do. And then he got back to me and said, unfortunately, our Doctor Who office is now closed. Bad timing. But when it reopens, please do contact us again. As I always said, and I said this to Andrew Cartman when I finally met him a few years back about that. I goes, I did seriously think in 2005, sending an email to Russell T and say, oh, Andrew Cartman sent me. and when I told Cartman that, he's like, you thought you should have done that, actually. You never know, it might have worked. That poisonous may have appealed. It's like, yeah, a bit late now. But yeah, I should have just gone for it. Damn it. But yeah, in that sample script, it said control room, not console room.
Yes.
I think console room came about through the New Adventures, I think. Possibly.
It was used under JNT in the 80s Doctor Who.
That's what it said, 'cause in the script it said control room. But
but it was used in Davison and Colin Baker stories as well. I think they call it the console room.
Okay.
Or maybe it was. Maybe it was earlier.
We'll have to listen out for that. See when they start.
Yeah. But yes, control room.
Well, we'll listen out. See if it's one of these things we pick up.
Is a better name. But yeah, just move lighting and stuff. Just he's lost a lot of his stripes. His head must be getting better.
Yeah, he's getting a bit with it now. You stupid old man. That's coming up. Love Barbara.
Yeah.
This stuff.
I
kind of don't want to speak over this speech. It's so good. You ought to get on your knees and thank us. Thank us.
All right, Gollum.
And this is why I get so annoyed that in New Who, when it constantly gone about how such a hero the Doctor is, they don't acknowledge the fact that it was Barbara that did it. That speech there is where the Doctor got turned around. That's what made him the man he is. Not leaving Gallifrey. That. Barbara's so amazing.
It's a bit of a shame.
I'm watching.
Go on.
All right, okay. I'm watching this woman on. Okay, let me finish this bit since we're
you carry on. Go
we're
on.
crossing over here. Okay, I'm watching this thing, right? This woman, her name's Jessica, but Seska on YouTube, where she's watching all of Doctor Who for the first time. She got into New Who, but she's watching the whole lot, so she's a whole reaction thingy. And she tries to go into episodes as blind as she can. Like, she's on the last Tom Baker serials now, and she's kind of getting a sense. She goes, I'm getting a sense we must be nearing the end because this is his 7th season now. I know he's a long time he's in the role, but we've got to be nearing the end, right? And I'm just thinking, right, she's just started Leisure Hive, so Meglos is coming up, and she absolutely adored Barbara, of course. So I'm curious to see how long it takes her to recognise Jacqueline Hill, and if for a brief second she actually thinks, oh no, that's not Barbara. Because I'd love that if she actually just for a second was convinced herself, what's Barbara, what, love it. It's such it's amazing that they got Jacqueline back in Doctor Who, shortly before she died, unfortunately. But it's shocking to me. It's like, why would you go for all that effort of recasting such a pivotal companion and not have her play Barbara in the story in that season, frankly? It just baffles me. Baffling. It'd be like having Billy Piper turn up as a character that's not Rose. It'd be like, why would you do that at the moment? But even that was meant to be kind of Rose-ish. But yeah, it's baffling. Anyway, sorry, you were going to say.
Well, just in response to what you said, I know there was a story a year or two later where Michael Craze was cast and then they turned around and said, actually, no. JNT has then just suddenly decided he wasn't going to recast old companions in
of course.
new roles.
Because he realised his mistake.
And, I think Mike Craze was a bit miffed about that. But, I think it was... it wasn't necessarily the best idea.
Well, yeah, if you're going to get a companion actors back, then at least... Because it's almost... Yay, nice to see them, but for longer-term fans, it must have been so disappointing in 1980 when she turned up but not as Barbara. I mean, at the time, I wasn't that longer-term fan that I would even noticed, but
no, it wouldn't have made any. It wouldn't have made any.
Like, say, Polly Langford turned up in the game and she's playing somebody else. It'd be like, what was the point? But yeah, I mean, you were going to say something else before.
I was just going to say that it was a shame that they couldn't make the melting clock and the melting watch face more
a little more clear.
More, clearer, because it wasn't necessarily. It wasn't immediately apparent what was going on.
Yeah,
so,
agreed.
Well, we got some mysterious music.
But then
again.
I suppose, in a way, you could argue this adds to it. You know, the fact that a lot of these visuals aren't as clear or as polished as they could be adds to the weirdness on some level.
It's these moments here. I think this perpetuates that the situation where we're still not entirely sure what the Doctor's up to. So, and we know from the previous two adventures that he's he can't always be trusted. So just sort of seeing him wandering around, you think, well, he's going to be up to something here.
Whose arms are those? Could that be an intruder in the TARDIS?
Maybe, after all that.
Or could it just not be?
We shall find out in the Brink of Disaster.
I mean, the reveal of, when we get to it, the reveal of what's going on, I don't think actually really scans very well at all. I mean, good attempt, but I don't think it quite scans as well as they like to believe.
It's, yes, it seems like a bit of a cop-out. Oh, hang on, there's a cat. What are you doing in here?
Ooh.
How did you get in here?
All my cats are sleeping.
Come on.
All the little kittens are sleeping.
I just have to get rid of this.
Little birdies are too. Well, you do that. I'm going to quickly grab a coffee and then we'll have the episode chatty-watty.
This is Luna.
I'm just going to get a fresh cuppa then.
All right, then.
What's his name?
Ooh.
What's the cat's name?
That's Luna. And she just threw herself at the door, a mad cat.
Right.
Are we pausing, are we, for a minute?
Let's go and get a fresh... Yeah, grab a cup.
Cool. Yeah. All right, yeah. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay, so that was episode 12 of Doctor Who, The Edge of Destruction. Tim, any quick thoughts? Or slow thoughts?
I like the from a writing perspective, I like the air of mystery around it, and the I can see attempts to make the audience slightly disquieted, not necessarily afraid, but just uncomfortable. I don't think what we get on screen succeeds, though. There's some very powerful moments, like Barbara confronting the Doctor, but I think it's undermined actually just by very dull workman-like production. And I don't know necessarily what the answer is, but I just think that there were, like I said when we were watching it, there there were scenes in that were set in like the Cave of Skulls that Waris Hussein directed that just seemed to have a certain energy and dramatic punch that these scenes in the TARDIS just lack, and I think it's I think it's just down to the direction. I think it is just basically it's a point the camera, the actors record them saying their lines, and then move on to the next thing. And I wonder if Richard Martin did slightly better with the Daleks because he was working with Chris Barry as sharing the directing duties.
Perhaps. But I think conversely for me, I think the workmanship of it all, the very basic camera angles, static, and all this stuff, for me it kind of works in its favour because up until this point, the previous 11 episodes were visually quite interesting and different and not experimental, but certainly were a lot of thought going into them to give him a sense of Skaro looking otherworldly and the Cave of Skulls being quite claustrophobic and Unearthly Child being so, well, amazing, frankly, if amazing is a stylistic choice. Whereas this one, as you say, was quite workmanship. But I don't know, for me it kind of works because it does help from a viewer point of view, for me anyway, to focus on the characters because you're not looking at all the amazing, wonderful stylistic, choices they made. You're just focused on the characters, on the actors, what they're doing. So it works for me. I like that eeriness. I think it helps to it. But again, like we said during the episode, maybe they could have done a few things with just having the camera slightly off frame just to give that sense of weird. Because obviously with the big cameras, you only can do so much because those cameras are freaking huge, and they can only go so low. But
I think it would have impacted.
I mean, I'm trying not to talk about Barbara's wonderful speech because that is obviously the word iconic is overused, but iconic I think fits. It is a turning point in Doctor Who just generally. So I'm trying not to talk about this because I've mentioned it a few times already, and I'm sure I'll mention it again. But I think it works for me really well. But
I think if they'd been a bit more creative with camera,
and we don't want to agree every time.
No, not necessarily with camera angles, but just with the positioning and the framing of the shots. I think that would have helped increase the audience perception that potentially there was someone else on board. So when you get the cliffhanger with the hands reaching out to the Doctor, that the audience is prepared. And okay, they could turn around afterwards and go, "Oh, well, you just totally misled us." But think, well, yeah, fair enough. That's not.
You could, but then you could easily argue that it's the TARDIS watching them. Yeah, and you could always argue at the end of this next episode coming up, that people are, "Oh, you misled us," or were they hinting at it's actually the TARDIS?
Yeah,
it's literally the TARDIS watching them, trying to reach them, which will fit, of course, with the explanation. Anyway, so shall we do episode 13, the Brink of Disaster?
Yes, indeed.
All right then. Okay. On 3, viewers.
On 3.
1, 2, 3. Shh. And I said this in the last episode. I'm not sure if you heard me, but I just loved the sound behind the theme tune.
What
it's easy to just know the theme tune's amazing, but that's obviously just going with the weird thing, and it really works. It's something that obviously they will lose later, but I think it works really well. I kind of want to turn around and watch this quickly, but
it gets lost in
I think so.
in when they redo the thing for Troughton, doesn't it? When they the Macro Terror.
Yeah.
When they do the new introduction, and they introduce a little sort of twinkles, sparkles. They introduce a little twinkles and sparkles.
But later on, you do get this weird kind of You do. I love the way with the signals got cutting out. It's like, what's he saying? Is he stopping as well? As I say, one day we'll have such a great signal that we're like, oh my, what we're doing.
Like they're in the same room.
On Monday night, it will happen. What the hell, man? One day we will actually do this. We'll actually work out maybe an anniversary thing where we're actually in the same place. We'll have a classic reaction set up where the camera's there. We're sitting on the sofa watching an episode. One day we'll do that. We definitely won't talk over each other then. Oh God, yes, we will.
So this week we have the first episode to be directed. We have the fourth director to come on board the series. We have Frank Cox. Oh,
nice pins,
Ian. A pair of legs he's got.
Oh wow! The only downside of this bandage thing, which is a nice idea, the idea that you're losing bits of the, I guess, medicine that's in it, is there's a lot of continuity between scenes.
Oh, is there? I've noticed all I've seen that it was slowly disappearing.
Yeah. There's one point that it's tied there, then it's down there. It's kind of like the knots behind his head now. Right. Actually, now it's simple. Before it's tied up like in a knot. Just little things.
Oh, but, yeah, I obviously hadn't paid enough attention to
you can just watch other stuff.
Bandage.
Yeah. Now he sounds like he did when we first met him. Because he was kind of like that with them, and right at the beginning. Don't you understand, child? You're not paying attention. I know what I'm talking about.
What is good is that you get a sense of scale of the TARDIS because they've only got a couple of sets in Lime Grove, so the TARDIS is the control room is able to be a lot larger. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas usually they've obviously got to make all the other sets for whatever. Here, it's just the entire studio is just the TARDIS.
Just the TARDIS, yeah. Oh. Dinner's ready.
I tell you one. Sorry, go on.
Yes, go on, carry on. I'd finished.
I was going to say, all right. One thing I think, it's something they obviously think of much, much later for one episode, but it's a shame to think of it earlier for the entirety of it. Is like in Two of the Cybermen, where you've got the echo in the console room.
Yeah.
It's not overpowering echo, but just a sense of, you get a sense that the console room is huge. And it's such a great audio thing. It's a shame in ways I didn't do this, because it's like, it just gives a sense of, wow.
I don't know whether they did it.
It's even ironic because, of course,
I don't know whether that was just because it was filmed at Ealing for Two of the Cybermen. They did the TARDIS scenes at Ealing, so it could be that it was just because of that, or it could be that they made the creative choice to give it
I don't know,
echo.
it does, to me, always come across like it was a deliberate, which is ironic because, of course, by that point the TARDIS set is so small.
Yeah.
Because
it's
huge. Doesn't sound huge.
Enemy of the World episode 6, they're on film again, probably at Ealing again for the double for Triton playing against himself, and it doesn't. I don't think it echoes.
Yeah, of course.
There, I may be wrong though.
No. I think the Tomb of Simon is very much an anomaly in that regard, but it's such a great idea. But we'll talk about that much later.
We will
much later. But on the plus side, missing episodes means you will actually move forward on this series quicker soon, because we'll have no choice.
We will after the end of Series 2.
I mean,
We'll be at Series 5 before we realise it.
yeah, we'll be jumping like 12 weeks worth of stuff. We're on the brink of destruction. Which one? Which one? Because I fucked up the line. Didn't you hear me? That's why I said it. Love it. I'm not entirely sure if that is actually a line that Ian was meant to say. Why did you say so and so? I got a feeling he said that because he fluffed the line. So he's like, I'll just make sure it was clear what he was trying to say.
I was just thinking it shows how he was paying attention, because I think it was a scripted line, and I suspect that the line was, "We're on the brink of disaster," because it's the name of the episode. Oh, he said the name of the show.
Yeah. Right.
And so,
and he can't. Yeah.
William Russell was paying attention, thankfully, and so he didn't come out with the line that he should have said.
Line, yeah. Well, he does that a bit later, doesn't he? I'm pretty sure when we get to censor rights, I've got a distinct memory of this. There's a bit where Hartnell's really lost what he's doing. He's just completely zoned out. And Ian's like, "Oh, did you mean so and so?" Yes, Chesterton. I'm pretty sure that we're literally William Russell's feeding him a line, but in a way that suggests he's not, but it's obvious he is.
Yeah.
I may be misremembering, but I feel sure it's in censor rights. Or as we used to call it back in the day, I don't know if you did, but in Doctor Who fandom before it was an internet fandom thing, we used to all call it the censor shites because,
No, I've never called it that.
No? Okay.
I quite like the censor rights.
And not colostomy?
No, afraid not.
No? Well, yours obviously a different part of fandom to me.
Yes.
Yes, I was a part of fandom once. In my shallow youth.
Shallow or callow?
That's a good one. Well, I guess you'll never know, for time travel does not really exist.
10 minutes to live.
What is it? 10 whole minutes? Let me just see. How many episode minutes are left in the episode? It's 15 minutes, so kind of 10 minutes. Kind of fits.
Well, 10 minutes with time for the titles and a lead into next week. Lead into Marco Polo.
But in terms of the actual disaster, yes. Ooh, they'll start talking about other adventures soon, won't they?
Well, they did. No, that was last one. That was the last episode. They were talking about Quinnis.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and they were going through stuff on the. Well, they showed stuff on the scanner in the last episode. Maybe it's mentioned in this episode. I thought it was last one.
I feel sure it's in this one, but it may have talked over it. It's definitely possible.
We've talked over everything else, so.
Well, that's what a commentary is for, right? It's not much of a commentary if we don't talk over stuff. See, now I'm thinking of the book of this, which obviously has lots more scenes of them going elsewhere in the TARDIS, and you see the TARDIS engine room, which is this very old Jules Verne, huge machinery, wooden
Nigel
veneer
Robinson
and stuff.
Target novelisation. Yeah, I remember reading that years ago.
I've got the audiobook. William Russell does a fantastic job, but he always does. So, always does. I mean, it's still lovely that almost certainly William Russell's last acting role will be as Ian. Just to say, did you say she? Which I'm like, that's nice. Shame he didn't meet her, because that would have been really nice, but, still nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice moment.
Yeah, bless him.
60 years
99.
later.
And today is Tom Baker's 90th birthday.
Yes, I saw you posting about that. Then everybody else posting about it.
Yes.
My doctor, my hero.
Indeed.
That's what you said. Was it your doctor then?
I always think so. He was the one that... He's the one that I very distinctly remember being attached to.
Mine was
more
always
so
McCoy.
than anyone else.
It's odd, because like I said, I watched it when I was a kid, so in the 70s. And I definitely watched early Davison, but then teenage years drifted off. But then randomly came back to the time of the Ronnie Part 2, very randomly. So McCoy is always the doctor that got me into Doctor Who. McCoy, well, mostly McCoy and Sophie, frankly. Their pair. Oh, here we go. There we go. More of the scannery stuff.
So yeah, maybe you're right.
But yeah, because I think it's when they're explaining about the fast return switch when she's like, "Oh, that's why it showed us this and this." I think I don't know.
Yeah, you could be right.
Or maybe they have mentioned it already. Find out now. See, Barbara could be right as well. So it's not safe to go outside then. I know, it doesn't explain itself very well at all. In the solar system. Oh, disaster! On the brink of... On the edge. The brink of the edge.
Brink of the edge of destruction.
The brink of the edge. We are on the brink of the edge of disastrous destruction. Try saying that 3 times fast. Or once. Yes, I know! Okay. This is where he goes and fluffs it all up.
Yeah. See, they could have had lovely atmospheric lighting like this the whole time.
Yeah. But you could argue if they did, this bit wouldn't have the impact it does.
This is true, yes.
Less is more. See, he starts off really well with this speech, but this is the way it all goes a bit wrong for him. Oh, bless him.
I don't know, he does all right.
He does. Well, it's the one that's got felt tip on, so I can tell you exactly which one it is.
On the making of it on the DVD, they said, they thought it was probably written on for the actor's benefit, but probably should have been rubbed off again before they filmed it.
Yeah, for rehearsal, so he knew where to go, and they forgot to rub it off when it came to the actual shooting. Yeah, love this stuff. It's stuck. The bloody spring's broken. Actually,
the explanation to Susan as well is I think it's unnecessary, and it suggests actually that it's again treating Susan like a 15-year-old girl. It's because there's no way that she shouldn't know what about the mechanism getting jammed. You know what would be the result of a spring getting caught and the mechanism being jammed. Yeah. So it's like they think,
I would count, however.
We've got to explain this to someone on behalf of the audience. Who can it be? Oh, let's pick let's pick Susan as the youngest member of the
Kid.
crew. But and yeah, it was all that was all it was all along. So,
Wasn't it to Ian? He was explaining it though.
well, he was telling.
If you're on about that entire, it was Ian he was talking to.
You may be right. I thought
This bit you mean? Unless you mean this. Who's he talking to? My head's in the way. Oh, he's from Susan. Unless this is the bit you're on about.
Yeah.
You're on about this bit, aren't you? Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But then that feeds into what I've said before, that if Susan really is only 15 years old, which certainly seems to be what they're always getting at in this era,
Yeah.
without the benefit of hindsight and all that, and she is crazy young for a Gallifreyan.
She is, but
which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a good example of the inconsistencies in her.
Oh,
well, not necessarily in her character, but in the way that her
and
character
as it was at the time,
treated. Because she shouldn't need that explained to her. She certainly shouldn't need it explained to her with a torch for as an example. I can understand potentially if.
And you couldn't put it to Ian or Barbara either, because.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
because they're smart enough to get it too.
But he could have tried to show it to Ian, and Ian could have said, "Yes, I know. You have to tell. I understand
science
the
teacher,
concept.
I do know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get science. I'm not stupid."
Ian has already mellowed to the Doctor, hasn't he? He's sort of smiling things off, and he's kind of
not.
He's accepted that the Doctor is a bit of a
not intentionally bad.
He's a bit of a wild card.
He's a bit of a rascal.
But, a rascal. But Barbara's really offended by the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's be interesting to know what. It's not something you ever can know, I would imagine. Whether the audience at the time, whether their sensibilities were more with Ian or with Barbara. I mean, you're not necessarily guided to one or the other.
I imagine primarily to Ian, because that's just, the 60s was obviously very, very male dominated. But I suspect for any females watching it, women watching it, girls watching it, their sympathies were with Barbara, just not openly so, because obviously a different world. But this scene goes some way to
it does. This is
soften it a wee bit.
This is another excellent scene.
Another scene, like I said about the previous one, where it's the one that shapes the Doctor into the character that he's always purported to, or always have been. It's like, no, he wasn't.
Yeah, this is the point.
2 episodes that make him.
This is the first time, really, in all of the show so far, that the Doctor actually makes an effort to win Barbara over, and succeeds as well. So,
yeah, to a point. I'm gonna have to listen to Marco Polo between now and the next time, because it's not a story. I know it, but it's definitely not one I'm overly familiar with.
Yeah, I've not.
I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
I've not heard it for some years now. So
I've got it on my tune. Yeah, I've got it on my iTunes, so I'm going to have to re-listen to it over the next couple of weeks before just so we can actually do a little review of it, so I know what I'm talking about, not just remembering things badly.
It shows how much the Doctor has changed as well, just in terms of Marco Polo. The fact that he's prepared to take the time to go out of his way to win Barbara over, because he realises that the fault lies with him. That's something that I think is slightly that's done slightly less and less in later years, and they kind of put it down to, oh well, he's an alien. He doesn't know how to react, or she doesn't know how to react or engage or whatever. And
well, they certainly did that a lot this in the last couple of years, didn't they? Which I mean, but then again, you can certainly counter that with the notion that every regeneration, the personality is different and their emotional reactions are different, and that's fine to a point. But it should still have the knowledge of, because the Doctor's still a Doctor, regardless of how he looks or which element of his personality has come out more. Well, viewers,
there we go,
and listeners more. That was episode. And 1 second. Episode 13. All these controls everywhere. Of Doctor Who. So we've done the what was creatively called the beginning arc on the DVDs.
Yeah.
Tim, not only about this episode, we talked about this episode quite a bit. What would you say about the first 13, as we do have a bit of a gap in the narrative coming up? What's your general overview of the first 13 episodes? Because, as you say, you kind of have to look at them as one.
I think there's a very clear character arc in those 13 episodes for Barbara and Ian and the Doctor, less so for Susan. I don't think that Susan
starts out well.
Yeah, I don't think she really goes on a journey as such. Whereas the Doctor, as he stepped from the TARDIS there to walk into Marco Polo, the Doctor is already a very different person to how he was when he walked into, when we first saw him in Totter's Yard. Ian and Barbara obviously are different just through the horrendous experiences that they've been through, and they have been through some flipping awful things. Facing death, not just their own death, but death of people that they've been very close to, and and illness and everything else. Through a period of it's got to have only been a few days since they left London, 1963.
We've had this been like maybe 3-4 days.
Exactly.
About 4 days now, because we've had at least one sleep this episode. So 4 days.
That's a lot, an awful lot to have gone through.
What a week. What a week.
They are showing their resilience amazingly, and it's clear now that they're at that point where it's almost like a line's been drawn underneath. There is a, I think, because the Doctor's met them halfway, there is almost a trust and understanding there with the Doctor that wasn't there before that episode. So it's been a real trial for them, and I think it's a wonderful set of episodes. There's ups and downs along the way, of course, but I do think it's a wonderful set of episodes. And if that's all they'd ever done of the show, it would have been just a really weird but brilliant TV series.
Here's a question for you then, off the back of what you just said. If that was it, if they'd not had anything after this episode now,
Yeah.
I mean, unlikely we'd be talking about it now, certainly. Would we ever have known about it, really? Or would it just been one of those things that's very obscure for very obscure fans that, like, I don't know, Adam Adamant or something that only
I was
certain
going to
people really
say
know
Adam
about
Adamant
nowadays?
because Adam Adamant's kind of known about. It's not necessarily widely watched. I don't know how much of it there is to watch actually, but
people are aware of it. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't all exist anymore either.
I think
the odds are,
I think it would be
on it.
Sorry, go on.
No, continue.
I think Doctor Who would be heralded as this kind of weird 60s sci-fi, and I think almost certainly if that's all we got, that at some point, probably in the 90s, another version of it would have come out. That someone would have picked it up. I don't think it would have taken place until the 90s because I don't think the desire was really there within the world of TV to resurrect something
maybe
like that. I mean, okay,
maybe
Steptoe and Son and the Likely Lads from the 60s were resurrected in the 70s. So I suppose it's.
See, I would wonder if any of it would have even existed by the 1990s. If it would literally maybe have been just a pilot that was all that was left, all the rest of it gone, wiped.
Possibly.
Because it would have just. Because I know Adam Adamant, there's a lot of episodes that don't exist now that have gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting. I'm sure we'll never know. But yeah, I mean, for me, the 13 episodes are, I suppose it does kind of what Russell T did when he brought Doctor Who back and is just done recently in the 4 specials. The first 4 stories, and I say 4 because Unearthly Child and Cave of Skulls or Tribe of Gum are, I think, quite 2 distinct stories. One's a 1 episode and one's a 3-parter. There's very distinct, that story's told, first adventure. I would say what it does very well, and probably why it continued as well, is in those 13 weeks, in those 4 stories, it showed how diverse a show it can be. Because the 4 stories are so very different to each other. I mean, Edge of Destruction is almost entirely different to Tribe of Gum. Tribe of Gum is so vastly different to Daleks, and Unearthly Child is different to all of them. And yeah, I think that's presumably why it has so much appeal, because wow, this is interesting and different. And on 1960 British TV, crazy different, clearly, because 60 years on, here we are talking about it still. But I agree with everything else you said about the characters and the development and Susan's lack of, but that's going to be an ongoing problem. It's a shame, because Caroline Ford shows that give her the right material, she's actually very good. She was great in episode 1.
All 4 of them are superb.
She is good in these last 2 in particular. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
But, yeah, standout. I mean, yes, I love how much the Doctor has been, although still a rascal, his rougher edges have been smoothed a wee bit, mostly by Barbara, but even Ian too, because Ian's challenged him quite a bit along the way. Not so blatantly as Barbara does in this story, but certainly he's been consistently challenged at Doctor throughout. But obviously, by far, Ian and Barbara are the standouts. I try to wonder, can I honestly separate them as entities? Because it's like Ben and Polly, Amy and Rory, they come as a set. They come as a set, they go as a set. It makes it hard to kind of separate their own individual stories.
They've got complementary character traits as well,
if I had to,
which helps.
Oh God, so Yeah.
So
But I
that's
would
kind of
say
why they
for
come in
me,
as a set.
really at this, because they
Yeah,
work so well together. Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
would
Ben and
say for
Polly
me,
similarly.
Barbara edges Ian out just a bit.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I
Yeah,
think Barbara is the one who's grown the most, even more than the Doctor, actually. Because Ian, he got used to it a lot easier than Barbara did. So much
yes,
easier, actually, than Barbara did.
yes, he has. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It's still it's
he's
been much
he's
more
an
of a
adventurer
struggle.
at heart, really.
Yeah,
In so many
yeah.
ways,
Well,
emotionally and mentally and everything. Cool.
Ian,
Okay. Well, I think that's us on this one. Sorted. Oh no,
I think
gone.
no. I was just going to say I suspect Ian is of an age where he would have fought in the Second World War.
That would make sense. Yeah, he would
So
definitely have been.
that
Yeah, because he's in his
potentially
what
has
30s, I guess.
it has
Yeah.
an impact potentially on his character
When he
background and
is,
so.
yeah,
But
his teens, late
yeah,
teens. Yeah, that would make sense. That would
so
definitely make sense. Yeah, but yeah, I think. Yeah, cool. All right then. So that's this week's done. Next week, viewers, we'll be back to Deep Space Nine, possibly for 2 weeks, because Tim has some family celebrations to deal with. So it's very
I
possible
do.
for the next 2 weeks we may be on DS9 just because timing works better in terms of recording. But we'll see. You may be
And
surprised we may be back to Doctor Who in only 2 weeks. But it might be 3.
is next week's DS9 the one where there's some next gen homework to do first as well?
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah. So between now
Uh,
and next week, you need to watch. Well, actually, if we're going to be recording Monday, week Monday, then obviously you've got 2 episodes to watch.
yes.
One is just more homework, but you don't. We're not. It's not like it's just background detail that will be relevant the following episode. But
Cool.
anyway, yeah. So back
Excellent.
to DS9 next, guys.
Yes.
For Blood Oath, with a wee bit
Blood
of
Oath.
discussion on Journey's End. And indeed, our journey has come to an end this week with Doctor Who.
Yes.
So, hey, see, we can segue. So, we'll see you all next week. Please do like, subscribe, all the usual stuff on Patreon or YouTube or Spotify or whatever. Come chat to us on Instagram, on our personal account or on the Replimat account. We have still got some sort of presence on Twitter. Not much of one, really, but who has, really? Yeah. And obviously our personal Facebooks, but we're not giving those away. Although you could probably get them, but you just can't get on it because settings. That's secret. All right. So until next week, goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Bye-bye, Duggan.
Oh,
I don't